If you've ever cooked pasta or garnished your hummus, you definitely know what olive oil is. Praised all over the world for its versatility and numerous health benefits, olive oil reigns supreme in the world of cooking. But did you ever wonder, how is olive oil made? Turns out, it's not an easy process, and traveling from the leaves of an olive tree to your kitchen counter is a long and difficult journey. It traces its rich roots back thousands of years, with archaeological evidence dating it to around 6,000 years ago. The process, however, has stayed the same for the entire generations of families, passing down the art of creating. Today we're going inside the oil mills, join whole process, through this cruise of history and culture. From olive fruit to oil, we're decoding the full process of creating every drop of this liquid gold. The story, however, began long ago in the sun-drenched landscapes of the Minoan civilization, where archaeologists found evidence of olive cultivation as early as 3000 BCE. Olive oil was their cornerstone of trade, religious offerings, and even personal grooming. While in ancient Egypt, olive oil was prized for its use in cosmetics, skin care, and ceremonial rituals. It was so versatile that it could even be used to anoint bodies, light lamps, or even flavor dishes. To say that olive oil was sacred wouldn't be a stretch. Ancient athletes in Greece didn't just eat olive oil like us, they bathed in it, and the reason why might surprise you. They did it to prepare their bodies for competition, because they had elevated olive oil into a symbol of health, strength, and victory. In households, it was a staple of the diet, a base for medicines, and a medium for preserving other foods. And honestly, it's impressive that they knew these benefits long before we started to acknowledge them scientifically. Word of its popularity escaped these regions, and rather than just remaining an essential but local commodity, it started getting traded on a scale never seen before, fueling both kitchens and commerce. But do you want to know the craziest part? Many groves planted during this era still stand, and their aged trunks are still producing fruit. Olive trees may take 5 to 8 years before their first real harvest, yet once established, they can produce fruit for centuries, like the ones we mentioned above. However, not all olives are destined for the same destiny, and the timing of their harvest determines this. When picked early, they yield a more pungent, peppery oil packed with antioxidants. But when they are left to ripen, the flavor softens, becoming richer and rounder. This is where a common misconception starts to breed. Because if you're like us, you probably know of either green or black olives. But do you want to know a secret here? Those are the same olives. Yes, all olives start as green and turn black when the ripening process is complete. So, no, these aren't two types at all. But that doesn't mean there aren't different olives. Did you know that 1/3 of the world's olive oil production is because of one type of olive? Yes, and it's called picul. Now, if you're like us and wondering why, it's mainly because of their high oil content, making them highly profitable to use. To top it off, pickles also boast a high level of polyphenols, giving it the flavor that we know and love. Now, we really weren't kidding when we mentioned olive oil as being healthy. Because did you know just half a teaspoon a day can largely reduce your risk of cardiovascular disease? It's true, olive oil has been linked to life-altering health benefits. 71% of the total oil content in olive oil is a predominantly fatty acid called oleic acid, and studies suggest that it reduces inflammation. In fact, it may even have positive effects on genes linked to cancer. That's not all because olive oil is loaded with antioxidants. These bad boys fight inflammation and help protect your blood cholesterol from oxidation, which is a plus if you don't want to die from heart disease. They lessen the stress on your central nervous system and mediate the main anti-inflammatory effects. Key among these is a compound called oleocanthal, which seems to work similarly to ibuprofen. Other than this, the relationship between olive oil and stroke risk has been studied extensively. But take this with a grain of salt as the results were mixed. A 2014 review of studies on 841,000 people found that olive oil was the only source of monounsaturated fat, linked with a reduced risk of stroke and heart disease. Another 2024 review found that olive oil may reduce the risk of developing Alzheimer's disease along with cognitive impairment. It may do this by reducing neuroinflammation and oxidative stress. Now you've probably gotten the memo that olive oil is healthy, but a lot of olive oil's benefits are linked to its harvest. Farmers must balance timing, weather, and demand to decide when the harvest begins, often between the colder months like November and January. Harvesting too early makes the oil sharp and grassy, and too late risks it losing its fresh complexity. Each tree's yield varies with its age, care, and the season's conditions. Do you want to take a moment and guess how many olives it takes to create a single liter of olive oil? 4 to 5 kilograms. Every drop is the result of years of growth and weeks of careful tending. But here's a fun fact. Now, each family can harvest up to 8,000 kilos of olives in a single day. Here's how. In the long, hard past, harvesting was done entirely by hand, with olive pickers climbing ladders to pluck fruit or gently rake branches, letting olives fall into baskets or onto cloths spread below. However, in 2025, this process is simply too slow to meet any production quotas. So while many still honor this tradition, they have mostly switched to modern harvesting machines. These do the heavy lifting by clasping the branches or trunks of the trees and deliver powerful, rapid shakes. The vibrations travel through the tree, loosening ripe olives without harming the tree or damaging the fruit. Nets or collection trays catch the falling harvest, which is quickly funneled into crates. From here onwards, the workers pick out the fallen leaves by hand, removing their excess from the nets. Once gathered, the olives are rushed to the mill, often within hours, because the longer they sit, the more their quality declines, and turns out, rotten oil isn't very marketable. From here onwards, the real task begins. At the mill, olives are cleaned to remove leaves, twigs, and any other debris that was collected with them. From here on, they are crushed, yes, including the pits, to create an olive paste. The creation of this paste can be achieved through 3 methods. Number 1 is part of the oldest techniques still in use today: stone grinding and mat pressing, a labor-intensive process that yields less oil than modern systems, but is still deeply cherished for its traditional charm and distinctive flavor. In this method, massive revolving millstones slowly crush the olives into a thick paste. Once a homogeneous mixture is created, the second most important step starts. It's called malaxation, where the paste is slowly mixed, releasing oil droplets in the mixture. The paste is then spread onto circular woven mats and stacked in a neat tower inside a press. Steady pressure is applied from above, making the mats release their precious liquid, which trickles into basins below. However, it's still a blend of oil and water and needs careful separation. Today, the most widespread system used worldwide is the second method, also known as the continuous method. Here, olives enter the mill at one end, and finished oil emerges from the other in a seamless flow. The fruit is crushed by a hammer mill into a uniform paste, which is then pumped into a malaxer, a large mixing chamber where gentle warming and slow turning encourage the oil droplets to separate. You've probably figured out why gentle warming is needed, but in case you haven't, it's so that they accidentally end up cooking or burning the oil. This is why it's really important that the temperature is kept below 27 degrees, dubbing it with the title of cold extraction. The third method is called integral, a spin on the continuous version of oil extraction, but with one extra step: the removal of olive stones before extraction. This approach was known in ancient times, but was deeply impractical due to the painstaking manual labor involved in the past. But with the introduction of modern machinery, it has been revived. Isolating only the flesh for processing, producers can influence flavor, reduce bitterness, and create oils with a more delicate profile. All this leads to the arguably most satisfying and important part of the process. However, if this stage gets rushed and messed up, you can end up with a very different tasting product than expected. Extraction. Now, the liquid we get from these processes is a mixture of oil and water, which is where centrifuges come into the picture. They swiftly divide the oil and water and leave us with our liquid gold. But that's not quite where our journey ends, at least for some manufacturers. You see, while the centrifuges have removed most sediment, there's still the filtration process left. Some producers skip this step for a cloudier oil that tastes more bold and fresh, while others filter it to remove any remaining sediment the centrifuges were not able to remove. This makes sure that oil has a longer shelf life and lower chances of going rancid due to any bits of remaining olive flesh in the oil. This filtered version gives a more subtle and softer flavor. But have you ever wondered why some of the world's best olive oils are stored in complete darkness before they're sold? No, it's not an aesthetic choice. It's actually to stop oil degradation. This is exactly why olive oil has green bottles, to avoid the sun's annoying rays. These bottles are meticulously packed and shipped to stores, and after you end up buying them on your next grocery shopping spree, they end up on your kitchen counter. It's absolutely crazy to see that what began with a single olive tree and its fruits led to being a part of the world's history with meals and medicine. Thank you for watching Whole Process. See you next time. Have you ever had the pleasure of drizzling a generous helping of avocado oil on your hummus? But have you ever wondered what it takes to turn this buttery fruit into liquid gold? Today, at Whole Process, we're going to uncover this mystery, from the groves in Mexico to the cold press machines in factories. If you like these videos, make sure to like and subscribe so we can continue making them. Until then, what is avocado oil and what makes it so healthy? Avocados originated in central Mexico around 5,000 years ago and have been cultivated there since then. It's not some health fad that has grown recently. In fact, avocados have been treasured by the local indigenous people for centuries. Here, avocados were used in food, skincare, and more because of its reputation as being oil-rich in nature. But the best part is that it's not just simply trendy, it's actually one of the most nutrient-rich oils in the world. However, the actual industrial oil extraction began quite late, approximately in the 20th century, when the modern mechanical presses were developed and stole the spotlight. However, there's a little twist here. Did you know that avocado oil is one of the few oils that's extracted directly from the pulp of the fruit, rather than the seed? But things are never that straightforward, and the way that avocado oil was extracted back in the day versus now has had a massive shift. The world's current large-scale producers of avocado oil are Mexico, Kenya, New Zealand, and Peru, etc. These regions are prized since there are very specific conditions that allow an avocado tree to thrive, namely, having well-drained soil. Having soil that's too wet or too dry can kill the trees, of which is why a mild climate and temperature between 15 to 30 degrees is preferred on average. Harvesting is another important factor, where a mismatch in dates can lead to a fruit that's either too ripe or not ripe enough. So the main season lies between spring and late summer. Avocados tend to have a larger oil content as they age. Early on in their season, they may have an approximate amount of 10 to 12% of oil, but at full maturity, they can have 20 to 25% of oil, which is a major jump. This leads to the timing being crucial. If picked too early, the yield is low and the oil can start tasting grassy. On the other hand, if picked too late, the overripe fruit can rot and ruin the final yield. When it comes to supermarket avocados, the physical appearance of the fruit also matters. However, that's not fully true for the story of the avocados that we will be seeing turn into our favorite oil. No, oil-grade avocados aren't necessarily perfect like their supermarket halves. In fact, they are usually unsuitable to be sold on their own, not because of taste, but because they aren't aesthetically pleasing enough to the eye. They're either too ripe, too bleached, or even too misshapen in shapes, which is why they get shipped off to become oil. Because when it comes to oil making, these qualities have little to no effect on the final yield, especially since the internal pulp is still perfectly good. At the time of harvesting avocados, it's important to be careful since they bruise awfully easily. So to avoid this, there are two methods that are used to pick avocados, by hand or by pole harvesting. The goal is always to get ripe fruit without damaging the skin, so pole harvesters with padded catchers do just that. In smaller orchards, hand picking is also an option. It takes down the bruising issue by a large number since they can be delicately handled by workers. Why is this bruising considered so bad? The answer lies in the enzymatic reactions that occur when avocados get bruised. Once that happens, the pulp on the bruised side turns brown and carries a bitter aftertaste into the final avocado oil product, which is why it's avoided as much as possible. After the avocados have been successfully collected, they get shipped off to facilities in crates and are then loaded onto conveyor belts. Their first stop from here are washing tunnels, which are essentially just pressure water sprays that are used to remove dirt, leaves, and pesticide residues. From here, the clean avocados are sent to inspection tables, where after meticulously looking through, the workers, or in some factories, optical sorters, remove moldy, damaged, or unripe avocados from the batch. The fruits get graded by size and ripeness. If you're wondering why this is done, it's to ensure that there are uniform batches to ensure an even oil extraction. Newer factories also have alternate methods that come into play here, places that are called enzymatic softening rooms. These rooms have controlled temperatures and humidity that are used to ripen the unripe fruit ahead of time before processing. This helps ensure that no fruit goes to waste and that time is used efficiently. While you may think this is a bit too much, there's always a good reason why these things are prioritized for oil flavor and quality drop drastically when the fruit begins fermenting. From here, the shortlisted avocados enter destining machines, which are used to slice the fruit open and remove the large center stones that are present in all. After the avocado flesh and the peel are separated, only the pulp is used for the oil extraction. The pulp is sent to hammer mills or cutters to mash into a smooth, uniform paste. Imagine it being the texture of freshly made guacamole. The meaning of cold press oils basically means that heat is avoided at this stage, especially to preserve the original nutrients and flavor of the oil. Yet, this wasn't even the most important part of the process. In fact, that starts now. Oil separation. The smooth paste that was created in the last step is now slowly churned in malaxers. If you're wondering what those are, they are large stainless steel mixing tanks, especially designed for oil separation. The slow and gentle mixing lets little tiny oil droplets inside the pulp to form and emerge from the paste. This is called coalescence. At this point, the temperature is carefully controlled and kept at a steady rate to avoid cooking the oil, usually elbow 40 degrees Celsius for extra virgin avocado oil. The full malaxing process can take around 30 to 60 minutes depending on the ripeness and variety of the fruit. So why is this part so important? Well, because it determines the largest selling factors of the final oil, like flavor, color, and clarity of the oil. It's really simple actually. In premium facilities, everything that's done is carried out in a way that gets the best final product. Everything from speed to material is adjusted to keep oxidation away. After the oil has been separated from the paste, the still combined mixture gets pumped into a centrifuge, which is a type of horizontal or vertical separator, depending on type. The high speeds of the centrifugal force separates the mixture into 3 layers: oil, vegetable water, and solid pulp residue. Those centrifugal systems are more modern in the current world, and older facilities still use the traditional methods of hydraulic presses. In this, the paste gets a large amount of pressure exerted on it to release the oil. The oil is immediately collected in large steel tanks and then set aside while the vegetable water is discarded. The pulp residue, however, is kept, but not for the reason you assume. It's mainly used in animal feed or, in rarer cases, even cosmetics. But there are tiers to the quality of oils. Even though there's no universally agreed upon standard for extra virgin avocado oils, producers tend to agree on some basic standards. Once the pulp has been pressed and filtered, unrefined oil begins its second journey, becoming either the previously mentioned extra virgin oil or refined oil. Extra virgin oil is obtained through a long-winded mechanical extraction, without any heat of chemical treatment. In the end, it retains its emerald green hue, buttery, unique aroma, and most of the fruit's natural antioxidants. On the other hand, refined avocado oil takes a longer trip, with several stages. All these exist to purify it, removing the free fatty acids, pigments, and even odors. This results in a pure, fresh, and neutral-tasting oil, having a lighter color and a higher smoke point, which is why it's used the most in commercial kitchens. Turns out, burned oil isn't the greatest. The first step in this journey is called degumming. Natural oils can contain impurities like phospholipids and tiny proteins, which are mainly called gums. To remove these, the oil is gently mixed with a small amount of water. This hydrates the gums and causes them to separate from the oil, where it gets centrifuged to be completely rid of. In some instances, even food-grade acids like phosphoric or citric acid are used in place of the water in small concentrations, like 0.05% and 0.4% of the oil's weight. Now comes the neutralization bit. Here, the main goal is to reduce those free fatty acids that were left behind. But why? It's because they can contribute to the rancidity and off flavors in the final product. Here, chemical and physical refining step into the picture. In both, the use of chemicals takes center stage and are used to remove the fatty acids. As one of the last stages, bleaching comes into play. This is done to remove any pigments in the oil and trace metals. At this stage, the oil is heated to around 80 to 120 degrees Celsius, mixed with activated clay or carbon. Then it gets held under a vacuum for 20 to 40 minutes. This belacing process absorbs the carotenoids and chlorophyll, etc., leaving the oil clear, clean, and stable. The final step to get the lovely refined avocado oil is deodorization. Here, high vacuum steam is passed through the oil at a temperature like 180 to 240 degrees. This is done to evaporate the unwanted compound in the oil without burning the oil itself. Though, there's a negative aspect to it as well. This level of high heat can degrade the sensitive nutrients in the oil. These are what make avocado oil so healthy, and their loss would defeat the purpose of all this hassle, which is why processors use an extremely careful balance of time and temperature to preserve as much of them as possible. All this leads to the removal of any remaining odors or volatiles left that could have altered the flavor, leaving behind an oil that's ideal for cooking. After all this, the oil goes through one last filtration pass to remove any fine particles that may have escaped though earlier. Once done, the samples are tested in the labs for key indicators of quality. And once the testers are satisfied with the taste and overall yield, they get sent over to get bottled. Though it's not that simple, it gets bottled in green bottles. But have you ever wondered why this happens and why green? Since avocado oil is light and oxygen sensitive, it gets filled in dark glass bottles, much like olive oil. In fact, to make sure the oil is completely protected inside, manufacturers even flush the oil with nitrogen gas before sealing. This is to avoid any reactions with oxygen. After all this, the bottles are capped, batch-coded, and labeled as the type they are: compressed, refined, or even extra virgin oil. To think that the humble avocado harvested from the tree would turn into this golden and delicious oil. It's incredible how much science goes into what we drizzle so casually on our food. Have you ever used avocado oil? Let us know in the comments. Thank you for watching, and as always, we hope to see you in the next one. What oil do you reach for when you want to cook a delicious meal or even oil your hair? Coconut oil. an oil coming out from nature's more resourceful fruit, with every part of it being useful. But what if I told you that the coconut oil that you use regularly is actually made from two different processes, ones that are not in any way easy? Today at Whole Process, we'll crack open the secret behind how coconut oil comes to life. If you enjoy these videos, hit the subscribe button so we can keep creating them. To understand coconut oil's production, we need to first understand the rich history behind it, though the craziest part is how long it's been around. Findings show that coconut oil has been used in the world for over 4,000 years, from Ayurvedic practices in ancient India to across the globe on the islands of the Pacific. Even though it's currently celebrated more as a superfood or for its role in beauty products across the world, in the past, it was highly regarded for its medicinal properties and its part in daily life. During the colonial period, European traders realized its importance and took it back home. And soon enough, by the 20th century, it had been popularized, and its reputation had been immortalized as a healthier alternative to most other fats available at the time. So how is this delicious cooking staple even made? It all starts from the coconut trees, which are grown in the subtropical coastal regions of Asia and Oceania. They include countries like India, Philippines, Sri Lanka, Thailand, Indonesia. But coconuts are unique. Unlike other fruits which have specific times of harvest, coconuts grow all year around. Yes, but their maturity and growth depends on the intended use for the coconuts. Green coconuts, mainly used for their coconut water, are harvested at about 6 to 8 months, while the mature ones that are primarily used for their meat get harvested after 11 to 12 months of maturity. Though getting the coconuts is actually the most difficult part. As coconut trees grow extremely tall, it's hard to cut down their fruit. To combat this, harvesters have a few methods, including climbing or pole harvesting. Climbing is actually the difficult part and has many risks associated with it, but essentially, the workers will get close enough to the coconut bunches and slice their branches using machetes to get them to fall. After the coconuts are collected, they get loaded into large trucks to transport to the factory. Oftentimes, the coconut trees are grown beside water canals so that there is ease in transporting the coconuts. After the coconuts reach the factory, here they get dehusked. What does that do? Dehusking is done to remove the outer hard shell covering of the coconut. It's done by skilled workers who use a combination of chisels and hammers to pry off the pesky layer to unveil the coconut inside. Once this is done, the coconuts get moved to the next part of the facility, where employees are hard at work and splitting the fruits in half. This is done to drain the precious water out of the coconut so it can be later packaged and sold. For virgin oil routes, the meat needs to be fresh, so speed matters a lot, and any delays can raise free fatty acids, which hurts the quality of the oil. For copra-based oil, the nuts are opened, meat removed, and deliberately dried. The drying step changes the entire process downstream. From here, the story splits. The dry or copra route dries the coconut meat and presses it into crude oil. That's most commercial refined coconut oil. The wet routes keep things fresh. Milk is expressed from fresh meat and oil separated by fermentation, centrifuge, chilling, or enzymes. That's how virgin coconut oil is made. The dried meat of the coconut is called the copra, and it's to thank for 70% of the world's coconut oil production. Once the kernel of the coconut is exposed, it's laid out in special industrial-grade kilns, or even outside in the sun to be dried. This is done to remove most of the moisture and to instead have a moisture level of 6 to 8%. Another advantage is that good drying can reduce the risks of mold and any funky smells. Once dried, the copra is pressed in machines called screw expellers. They place a large amount of pressure on the copra, which leads to the oil getting extracted from it. Small mills get 60% or so oil yield from dry weight. Big operations often follow pressing with solvent extraction to recover the remaining oil. The crude coconut oil that comes out is darker, contains free fatty acids and other impurities, and needs refining. But what happens to the pressed cake which is left behind after the pressing? Don't worry, it doesn't go to waste and instead is used as animal feed. Once the clear, rich coconut oil is extracted, it gets passed on to the most crucial stage in its production, refinement. It started with neutralization, where the free fatty acids are removed by bleaching. Like we said above, the reasoning behind this is that fatty acids can spoil the flavor and quality of the oil. But how is the bleaching done? There's actually a detailed step, and it's done by using adsorbent clays to strip color and pigments from the oil extract, and finally sending it through deodorization. It's a form of distillation where they use high-temperature steam to remove volatile odors. Once neutralized, we obtain our neutral-tasting coconut oil. All of these steps ensure that the final oil has a higher smoke point and is perfect for use in cooking. However, if deemed necessary, another step is brought to the center stage: fractionation. If by chance the oil is considered unstable, then factories go ahead and use fractionation to improve its stability. Once they get that final pure oil, the quality testers spring into action. We obviously don't want spoiled oil, which is why this part is carried out very meticulously, with constant checks testing out the oil's peroxide value, fatty acid percentage, and even the moisture levels. But what do each of these do? The peroxide value tracks oxidation, because moisture and volatile matter affect shelf life. Virgin oils, on the other hand, are judged by very low FFA and an expectation of their sensory fresh coconut aroma, while refined oils are judged by their neutrality. So you can rest assured, they really don't hold back when it comes to inspections. Though this leads us to the sister method of this process, one that leads to a completely different quality of coconut oil: virgin coconut oil. What virgin coconut oil does is keep the kernel fresh. Producers go ahead and grate the fresh white meat and then press or mill it to extract its coconut milk. But from that simple product, there are several unique ways to get oil, all different to the screw method we discussed. The oldest method, with the most cultural significance, is the fermentation one. Here, time is your best friend. You simply leave the coconut milk in jars and wait until the oil and milk solids separate into two sides. While it's both low effort and definitely low cost, the only downfall is its significant waiting period and even the inconsistent product at the end. So there's another option that employs the same principle: centrifugation. Here, the coconut milk is spun around at abominable speeds until the milk solids and oils separate. Sounds great, doesn't it? It's quick and relatively effective at doing its job, but it does have one extra requirement, and that is more tech-advanced machinery like the centrifugation machines. However, since its pros outweigh the slight con, it's the most common method of extracting coconut oil that we use today. An interesting but less common alternative is the process of winterization. This is done by cooling the milk to extremely low temperatures until the fat molecules form crystals, then skimming the fat off of the top. Once skimmed, the fat is then melted as cream, then melted. What happens is that enzyme-assisted methods break down the protein-stabilized emulsion, freeing the oil faster and coincidentally also giving a higher yield. Some producers use cold press or micro-expellers on fresh gratings to extract oil at low temperatures, protecting the aroma and the nutrients. After the initial separation, the oil is clarified and centrifuged to remove any excess water or fine solids. From here, the oil is moved to a cold storage area to preserve its flavor and quality. The final result is a completely clear, water-white oil with a very low amount of fatty acids, while also having that fresh coconutty aroma. Perfect virgin olive oil by regional standards. So, which version did you prefer? Let us know in the comments. The oil then gets packaged, glass or plastic bottles, depending on the manufacturer, and specific brands are lined up on the conveyor belts and moved under automated machines, with nozzles that are used to explicitly fill up the bottles. Each nozzle fills the exact amount into incoming bottles, making sure they are all level. After the bottles are filled, they immediately move over to the capping station, where they get sealed, preventing any unwanted debris or dust from entering and protecting the oil inside. But after all this comes the most important part, especially for the manufacturing company: The labels. Every company has their own logo and design that they have painstakingly designed, and now is the time to make it shine. The bottles are wrapped with the plastic labels and then sent off to the final step in packaging. Here they get their expiry and production dates stamped on if they haven't already been included in the labels themselves. Next, they get stacked in boxes in the order of batches, ready to be loaded onto trucks and shipped around the world. Taking the long-winded trip to your local grocery store so the next time you're on your weekly shopping spree, you can simply grab a bottle. While the process of creating coconut oil isn't zero waste, it is still quite environment-friendly as each step's byproducts can be further refined or even used as animal waste. The journey of this humble fruit in the coconut trees in Asia to reaching your countertop halfway across the globe. Thank you for watching Whole Process. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button, and as always, see you in the next one. Under the broad summer sky, thousands of golden heads turn in unison, following the sun's daily path in sync. The golden rays of the sun act as their sources of nourishment and let these joyous plants carry out photosynthesis. But what plants are these? These are oil-type sunflowers, the backbone of one of the world's most widely used edible oils. Each seed stands minimal, no larger than a fingernail. However, in their tiny casting lies nearly 40 to 50% of the sunflower's weight in golden and delicious oil. It's this remarkable natural storage that powers an entire industry of modern nutrition, chemistry, and even engineering. Today, at Whole Process, we are going to trace down the complete journey taken from start to finish in creating this liquid gold. If you enjoy these kinds of videos, remember to like and subscribe so we can keep making amazing content for you. But first, what is the reason for the love sunflower oil receives routinely? Sunflower oil is celebrated not only for its light, neutral flavor, but also for its nutritional balance and versatility. It stands as being naturally low in saturated fat and rich in unsaturated fatty acids, the chief of these being linoleic acid, depending on the cultivar. What this acid does is support healthy cholesterol levels when used in the place of solid fats. Its high content of natural vitamin E, which is a potent antioxidant, helps protect cells from oxidative stress while also extending the oil's shelf life. It also shines for another reason: its ability to handle high heats. Sunflower oil can withstand high frying temperatures without breaking down, while its cold-pressed varieties add a delicate, nutty aroma to salads and dressings. But where does the actual journey begin? It takes its first breath when harvest arrives at the crushing facility. Each truck is sampled to check the seed quality. Moisture in this situation must be precise, sitting between the golden range of around 6 to 7%. Too wet, and all of a sudden, the seeds are spoiling in the storage due to microorganisms feasting. On the other hand, having a too brittle seed can make the seeds break apart way before the processing has started, which forces the farmers to focus on this with extreme diligence. Technicians measure the oil content using nuclear magnetic resonance, also known as NMR. If you're wondering what this is, don't worry, we were clueless as well. It's a non-destructive test that reveals the percentage of oil without crushing a single seed in the process. The average batch measures around 45% oil, which is perfect for extraction. After this is done, the process starts to take its beginning baby steps, with the most important precursor, cleaning. The seeds pass through vibrating screens that shake away dust, sticks, and even stones. The air aspirators in modern facilities also pop up at this point, and using a blend of innovation and technology, they get used to blowing off lighter chaff from the seeds. Every contaminant is removed here. The reason behind doing it at the start is to ensure that there's much much less wear and tear downstream. After cleaning, the seeds are sent to dehulling machines. The spinning impellers here go ahead and crack the tough outer shells of the seeds. This is done to separate and extract the soft kernel inside, which is the gold nugget form of the praised oil. The lighter hulls get blown aside by air currents fitted down the sides of the conveyor belts. But where do they get blown off to? If your guess is that they will be thrown away, it's actually wrong. Instead, they will be used later as biomass fuel to power the plant's boilers. The next stage that takes the spotlight is conditioning. Here, the dehulled kernels enter cylindrical drums in the facility, where they get gently heated with steam around them. This is done to soften the tissue and adjust the moisture content of the kernels, essentially making the oil cells pliable. In this form, the kernels are ready to be flattened. Rollers come into the picture and, as mentioned, get to work. They transform each kernel into thin flakes, with these final sheets being even less than a millimeter thick. Flaking is a crucial step at this point, and by rupturing the oil-bearing cells, it shortens the distance the oil must travel during extraction to reach its final form. Every micron of thickness matters. Too thick and all the oil is trapped. Too thin and all of a sudden the flakes crumble to become powder. Middle ground is simply at the heart of the process. Some plants include a cooking step. The flakes in this round get heated to around 70 to 80 degrees Celsius in a controlled moisture setting. This allows the oil to flow much more freely during the pressing process. However, mechanical pressing is actually quite straightforward. Inside each press, a giant screw rotates within a tapered barrel, squeezing bulks of these well-prepared flakes with immense force. This force, though, is integral to the process. The pressure gradually rises as the oil seeps out through the narrow slits, while the solid material is compacted toward the discharge end. From 100 kilograms of sunflower seeds, the yield at this point shrinks to a small size of around 35 to 40 kilograms of crude oil. The rest of the mass gets turned into press cakes. These press cakes are still rich with oil, which is why we come back to them very soon. You might think the process is done at this point and that we've obtained the oil we were after. However, the fresh pressed oil that we have collected is actually not ready for commercial use. It carries a mix of fine seed particles, gums, and even trace moisture. So while it flows into vibrating screens and filter presses, the emerging oil is a cloudy amber liquid, crude sunflower oil. Back at where the cake sits with the high oil content, the extraction process faces a hurdle: how to extract the rest of the oil from the cakes themselves, especially after pressing has been done. Here we take the helping hand of a chemical ally, N-hexane. In the solvent extraction building, the press cake gets loaded into a continuous extractor. Here, hot liquid hexane is made to percolate through the porous mixture, dissolving all the remaining oil. The recovered oil from both these processes is now blended and stored in stainless steel tanks. At this stage, it's a deep golden brown, rich in phospholipids, free fatty acids, and natural pigments. Refining removes everything that can spoil or even darken the oil. The sequence, of course, depends on the manufacturer and the chosen route, chemical or physical. However, both routes have 4 key operations: degumming, neutralization, bleaching, and deodorization. In degumming, water or dilute acid is mixed with crude oil. The phospholipids absorb the moisture and form heavy, sticky gums. Centrifuges come into the picture and spin these out, reducing the phosphorus content from hundreds of parts per million to less than 10. When the process follows the chemical route, the next step is neutralization. Caustic soda, sodium hydroxide, is carefully metered into the oil to react with free fatty acids. This forms a soap known as soap stock, which separates as a heavy layer. After centrifugation, this soap stock gets drawn off and treated separately. The oil is then washed with water and dried under vacuum. Chemical refining is straightforward, but consumes chemicals and water. For oils of very high quality, plants prefer physical refining, which voids the caustic step. But the truth is, whether chemical or physical, all refining lines converge at bleaching. Here, The oil is mixed with fine bleaching earths, clay minerals activated by acid treatment, sometimes combined with activated carbon. Under a gentle vacuum, the clay absorbs pigments, trace metals, and oxidation products. The slurry then flows to pressure filters, emerging pale yellow and sparkling clear, and the spent bleaching earth is collected for disposal. While almost at the last leg of the journey, some steps are still left undone. Sunflower oil naturally contains waxes derived from the seed coat. When filled, these waxes crystallize and make the oil appear cloudy. To ensure a clean bottle, even in cold kitchens, refiners go the extra mile and perform dewaxing. The oil here is cooled in jacketed tanks until fine crystals form, which are then filtered. What is left behind is a brilliantly clear yield of sunflower oil. Finally comes deodorization, the finishing touch. Inside a tall stainless steel column, live steam is bubbled through the hot oil at high temperatures, with near vacuum conditions of only a few tenths of a kilopascal. Volatile odor molecules and remaining free fatty acids then evaporate and are drawn away. This final distillation purifies the oil to near perfection, colorless, odorless, and even neutral in flavor. Throughout refining, technicians monitor key indicators. The free fatty acid content now reduced to below 0.05%, and much more. Only when each parameter meets the food-grade standards does the oil move forward in the process. The final, refined, and deodorized sunflower oil is also known industry-wide as RBD oil. This flows right through final polish filters and into the much-awaited bottling lines. Here, nitrogen gas is often used to blanket the tanks, protecting the oil from oxygen. Glass or PET bottles are filled, capped, and labeled at speeds reaching hundreds of units per minute. Time is money, and it shows in this process. Each bottle contains a product that began its life months earlier as a field of flowers following the sun. When it comes to smaller facilities, more traditional methods are still used, like cold pressing, etc. However, this method only yields about 75 to 80% of the oil available in the seeds, which is why it's much more costly. Still, it sits as one of the few cherished practices that very traditional facilities tend to use. From planting to packaging, the journey of sunflower oil is a study in how hard work and science can create a lovely cross. Harvesters time each and everything to ensure that the seeds they collect and send off are the best quality overall. Process engineers balance heat, pressure, and chemistry to create this amber gold. Back in the fields, new sunflowers are already growing, each seed carrying the perfect reserve of energy, just waiting to be used. This entire process stands as a testament to how nature connects Earth with a golden thread, enjoining soil, sunlight, and human ingenuity to create. All this effort shines through and through till the oil reaches the supermarket, from where it gets stocked into the very aisles you will purchase it from. So, the next time you're in the mood for some cooking, remember to grab a bottle from your nearest supermarket. What's your favorite oil? Let us know in the comments below, and thank you for watching Whole Process. As always, we'll see you in the next one.